What about it, YouTube? Alright, I was checking out this video of that Indian dude, Ravi Zachariah, I think his name is. He's a Christian. He goes around and, he gives lots of talks and presentations. And actually, one of the things he has on YouTube is when he spoke before the Mormons. He somehow was invited to speak to the Mormons. Anyway, the one I was watching the other day was he was giving this presentation. There was an atheist. I don't know if they were students or what, but there was this atheist kid in the audience who, starts his question out like this, just matter-of-factly, out of hand, out of the box. The presumption of the Bible and religion has been proven, disproven, and been proven to be fake and fantasy because we have all this scientific proof of evolution, on and on and on. So, yeah, he framed it right out of the box like, okay, since we know that religion and the Bible is, basically a joke, and we've got science that tells us everything, my question to you is, when it comes to religion, you say that God is all-knowing and all-powerful and all this and that and the other. Well, that would mean that there's no free will, because if God knows everything, then there's no free will. So that's another example to the atheist of how it's a joke that there's this God and that this God knows everything and wants Ravi to choke on this, right? So I don't remember exactly how Ravi answered it. He kind of went into a long diatribe, and I just got lost because I was thinking how I would answer it, okay? So when these scientists, all right, these prophets of scientism, this religion, when they talk about string theory and they talk about the multiverse, right? Even Alex Jones, I've heard him talk about there's 10 dimensions or 42 dimensions. All of this is just, the same guy telling you that the Bible is a fantastical, joke is the one telling you that there's a multiverse. Okay? And I've heard people, forgive me, correct me if I'm wrong, but I've heard them describe this theory of multiverse as if every time I guess every moment, I don't know, but every so often or something, I don't know, you make a decision, but in another universe you made a different decision, and so it's split off into this other universe of other consequences, and then from there it branches off. Okay. Now, I don't subscribe to 1 ounce of that stuff, not a tiny bit, none, okay? There's one reality, that's the only one we can prove, so I'm just going to stick with that. But I'm going to use that to answer the guy's question, the atheist question, about God and free will, and how can God be omniscient, omnipotent, all-knowing, and then still somehow there's free will. Because, the idea, I think that some people phrase it this way, is nothing surprises God. Okay, so that's a good segue right there. So nothing surprises God. And the multiverse, how can we tie this all together? Okay, I did a video before about how this life is like a choose your own adventure book, if you know what I'm talking about, where you read along and then there's a choice that has to be made that you make as the reader, and then if you make this choice A, you go to page whatever, choice B, you go to a different page, and you continue on until there's another choice to be made. And then the difference now would be with this book, there's different endings depending on how you choose. Now with God, in my video, I explained that that's kind of how it is, but there's one ending, okay? Yes. So the way to think about how all this fits together, okay, is that God knows all of the possibilities and He knows all of the probabilities. He knows every choice that you could make, and every choice from there that you can make, and every choice from there that you can make. So in that multiverse respect, God can see before any of these multiverses has happened. God can see all of these multiverses possibly being the one that takes shape. Okay? There's one, though, that's going to take shape. The other ones are just possibilities. Okay? So as time advances through this choose your own adventure, okay, God is all knowing of what could happen. And there's nothing that surprises Him because He knows all the possibilities of what could happen. But He also knows how He will react to all the things that have happened. Now, if you're living in the world, I promise you, because I've been there, if you're living in the world and you're beating your head up, upside the wall, trying to get ahead, trying to make great choices, trying to become financially secure, trying to build an estate, trying to advance in whatever career, and you're doing all this without God, and you're doing I can do this by myself, right? If that's your attitude in life, I promise you that you're living a life of frustration and disappointment. And I just promise you, okay? Now, I'm not talking about full-blown Satanists who kind of have a different gig going on, but they're being protected and being rewarded by the other side. And I'm getting at that if you're living in the Lord, you'll be amazed at how your burdens are light. And you'll be amazed at how little you think you need now anyway. And you'll appreciate your time, and you'll focus your time in different ways that are way more rewarding, so that your psyche and your mental stability, your mental health will be A+. Okay? So God knows. God knows where you might go. He knows the possibilities. He knows all the potentials of where you might go individually in this. There's one ending to it. So the thing is, where will you be at the end? That's the question. Will you be saved? Will you turn to Jesus? Will you give your life to Jesus? Will you decide that this worldly, life of being, caught up in materialism and junk and lust and and perversions and appetite, when you realize that is all the lie, okay, and you turn to Jesus, where will you be? I mean, that's your choice. That's where I was going with that. I mean, will you choose the mammon? Will you choose to follow the flesh? Okay? Now, the attitude when you decide you're going to go towards God and you're going to start living in Jesus is a constant walk, right? It's not that you're still in the world. You still have the fallen nature. You still have the flesh that you're trying to overcome every day as they say, pick up your cross. Okay, as you suffer against your flesh. But God will help you. If you pray to Him and you have true intention to overcome whatever it is, perversions, drug addictions, angry thoughts, hateful thoughts, unforgiving thoughts, those things, you know, will dissipate, and you'll just be emotionally elevated. Okay, God wants a close relationship with you. You know, white, Negro, Chinese, Japanese, dirty knees, and look at these Jews. He wants a relationship with everybody, but you've got to choose it. And so, please, this is the choose your own adventure. Where will you be at the end? There's going to be one end for everybody. All of those that have sold off to the devil and who think they can take over God's creation, again, these chosen people, they think that they can take out the two pillars that God's placed as his rulership over us, okay? His control of creation and his law. Well, they want to take over all forms of creation. They want to terraform, you know, everything. You know, control population, control thought, control what lives and dies to the, you know, control what lives to the point of whatever chimeras, cross species, you know, clones. See, when you've sold off to Satan and you're all about destroying, see, it's all about destroying it any way you can, especially if you can mock it at the same time, you know? Like if you can have people upload their consciousness into a robot and then have butt sex with another dude who uploaded his, you know what I mean? That would be, I mean, this is where they're going, right? But they want to have all control over that, and then of course the other pillar of God's law they'll just replace with their Noahide, right? Which is worshiping them. They're the deity. Interesting that they make themselves idols before Goyim, and then kill Goyim for making what they call a mere human, Jesus, a magician as they call him. You know, you got to die because that's heresy and blasphemy to worship a man, but you got to worship them. That's not blasphemy. I mean, who are these people? It's like each one of them is like, oh no, that guy, can't worship him, but each one of us, yeah. I mean, each one of you is now better than Jesus. I mean, I'm sure that's what they would think, you know? Okay, kind of got off, kind of rambled around. Can I rodeo this back into a finale here? This is a choose your own adventure where God knows all the possibilities, as if he knows all the different multiverses that could take place, and he's got it all figured out for every single one of them at his end. Okay, it doesn't matter which multiverse humanity chooses. Ultimately, you know, he knows how the outcome's going to be. Ultimately, he's just waiting to see, with your free will, which one of these multiverses, where will you end up? I think that God was probably bored, and so he wanted company. And then I think that God, I mean, you know, I'm not denying or arguing with any, you know, Christian lore of creation. None. What I'm just saying is, like, if I have to ask myself, you know, like, why would, let's say you had the ability to do all this. Why? I mean, why, really? So I think God was lonely. And then I think that at some point, God wanted people who would give themselves to him and worship and glorify him because of his love and his grace, so that he could have, like, really cool people to hang out with. You know? Like, that's, you know, and then manifest himself in the form of Jesus, so that there's this person that we will know, that we can know now, but there's this person. Oh, it's still running. Anyway, I think that's what it was, and that's what it is. So let's try to find Jesus. Love y'all. God bless you.